My name is Chris Teixeira, Certified Master Baker. Welcome to CMB Study Hall. We're making croissants today. So we're going to be making the dough and butter block for the lamination. So here we're going to have the flour. We're going to add our yeast to this. I'm going to combine this together so the yeast is evenly distributed. In the bowl, I'm going to put the water and the milk. I always like to start with the wet ingredients in the bowl as opposed to the dry ingredients. It allows for easy mixture without any kind of clumps going on at the bottom there. I'm also going to add the salt and the sugar to the liquid. I don't want to incorporate that into the flour mixture that has the yeast. I don't want to activate this yet. So the next step is going to be adding all the flour in one shot into the bowl here. Then we're going to mix. I'm going to start on speed 1. And I'm looking for it to start to form a shaggy mass before I add any of the butter in. I'm going to give this a little scrape to help it along here. So this is the point where I will start adding the butter in. So nothing has really come together yet. It's just a shaggy mass. You don't want to add the butter until after this process. So you've gotten the flour hydrated. So I'll slowly start adding pieces of butter at this point and letting them get incorporated. I'm going to turn this up to speed 2 now. So once all the butter goes in, we do want that to mix for a little bit just to incorporate the butter fully. Remember, we are going to be laminating this, so it is going to get more, the gluten is going to get some more work as we're incorporating the roll-in fat portion of it. So you can kind of hear in the bowl, there's a slight sticking sound, and that's from the fat being incorporated. So generally a good rule of thumb is once that sound kind of goes away, you can take it off the mixer. Again, depending on the area that you're in, the time of year that you're in, you may need to add a little bit of flour depending on the humidity in the air. If it's the middle of the summer and you're in a very high humid climate, you may need to add a little flour to help it come together. Again, if you're in a dry climate in the middle of winter, you may need to add a little bit more water or milk to the mixture to get it to come together. All right, I'm going to give this one final scrape to make sure everything is combined here. If I take this out, you can currently see that it is kind of a gloopy mess here, right? I can't really laminate this. So this portion now is just going to be mixing to make sure that we can get an elastic dough that we can actually laminate. I'm going to take this up to speed 3. Okay, give it another scrape. So now we're starting to get a little bit more gluten development here. You know, the dough is still a little tacky, but we're not getting as much falling apart as we did before. So we're going to keep mixing this. There is butter in this, not a lot of butter, but there is butter, which does shorten the gluten strands, which is why you do need to mix it for a little bit longer than you would, let's say, a baguette. You're not mixing it as much as you are mixing it a brioche dough. There's not that much fat in it, but there is a little bit of fat in it. All right, we're going to check it again. We're almost there. And then after we take this off the mixer, we're going to put it on a tray, and we're going to let it bulk ferment. All right, so I'm feeling it to see how tacky it is currently. So it's coming off my fingers. You know, it's still sticking a little bit, but not as much as it was before. So I'm just trying to feel that. I'm gonna give it another minute or so, and then we're good. Remember, as we allow the dough to bulk ferment, the bulk ferment process is gonna allow time for the water to hydrate the flour fully. So while it may be a little bit tacky now, when we go to laminate it and cool it off, the dough will have been absorbing all of the water that is making this currently a little bit tacky. Similar to the baguette dough process when you're bulk fermenting that. So I have sprayed this piece of parchment slightly. Again, this is a slightly sticky dough, so we don't want it to stick while it's bulk fermenting. And you can kind of see that at this point, it's created a ball, where previously where it was a shaggy mass, there's elasticity going on there. You know, you can pull it. Remember, we are going to laminate, so that process of lamination is also going to develop the gluten some more. I am going to slightly spray the top and then put some plastic wrap on it. And then we're going to let that sit for 45 minutes. So we're going to make the butter block portion of the lamination. So we saw that the dough is on approximately a half sheet tray. So we want to make sure that we don't make this butter block and use it in correlation. You want it to be, you know, approximately a quarter of this piece of parchment. So what I like to do is kind of get it where it's going to go. And we're just going to slightly cut this up and kind of lay it where we want it to be. So like I said, in the end, we know that we have a half tray of dough. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to seal this down. And now I'm going to start hitting the butter to soften it so that I can get it into its proper form. So sometimes the parchment will rip. Realign it again. Basically, I'm looking to soften it. So right now it's almost there actually already. We're just looking it to be softened. And again, I don't want to be, remember I have a half tray of the dough, so I don't want to go too much larger than this. And what I would also recommend doing, so it's starting to get a little bit weird of a shape, just from the way it's spreading out. So don't be afraid to move it and put it back into a square form. The more that you pay attention to these details in the beginning of making a square butter block and a square or having a proper dough, the easier it is to laminate in the end. So at this point, I'm just going to roll it slightly to get it to the correct, all the same thickness. Again, just square it off slightly. And the consistency you're looking for is, if I were to hold my hand as if you were testing for a steak, if you make a fist, I'm not clinching so hard, but I'm making a fist, and it gives a little bit of a give. So if I were to compare it to, it'd be like a medium steak is a good comparison. You know, if I'm feeling it, there's no hard portions of butter here. There's nothing that's, you know, harder than the rest. It's all been pounded evenly. So yeah. This is ready, just waiting now for the lamination to lock it in.